Welcome to NIOS. In our previous session, we had covered the topic British impact on Indian society and culture. In our today's video lecture, we will cover the topic Movements during British rule in India. So let us begin. As you are aware that the British colonized India for her wealth and resources. In fact, India was called the jewel in the British crown. Do you know why? It was because India was the biggest and wealthiest among all the colonies of Britain. And the only aim of British was to use wealth of India for their own benefit. Most of the political, economic, and social policies of British were against Indians. Therefore, slowly, the people of India stood against the foreigners and their policies. Therefore, many movements began against the British. Dear learners, you all will be surprised to know that during the British rule in India, many famines took place. Do you know what is famine? A famine happens when the people don't have enough food to eat, and that leads to their illness and death. During the first half of the 19th century, 7 big famines occurred in India that led to the death of 15 lakh people. While 24 famines took place in the latter half of 19th century, in which 200 lakh people died. Here it is necessary to mention the name of Bengal famine, which was the most harmful, and it killed 3 to 4 million Indians. As we have already understood in the previous lesson about the introduction of new land taxes like permanent settlement and Ryotwari and Mehalwari settlements. These were the demands of money in the form of tax from the farmers, and this tax amount was increasing day by day. It is important to note that in those days, agriculture was dependent upon rains. If rainfall took place, crops were produced, and if less or no rainfall occurred, the crops were destroyed. However, the demand of land tax by the government would not decrease, and this created burden on the farmers, and they started opposing the government's policies. All these groups of people who were not happy with the British government policies came together and started opposing the rulers openly. In the year 1783, they stopped paying revenue to the company officers. However, in the end, they were forced to pay the taxes. It is interesting to note that during this time period, Indian people arose against the British policies in different parts of the country. Polygars opposed them in Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. Another group of Mappilas in Malabar, Kolis in the place Maharashtra and Gujarat. Now, before moving further, let us try to know more about these people who openly revolted against the British. The first group of people we discussed was revolt of polygars. This movement took place in Tamil Nadu. Polygars were local military chief and farmers for many generations. In the year 1781, the East India Company signed an agreement with the Nawabs of Arcot that gave the right of collecting tax of the region to the Nawabs. The Polygars people opposed this decision of the company, and after many quarrels, the agreement was taken back and the original rights of polygars were given back to them. The another group of people known as Mappila revolt from the place Malabar. The Mappila revolt, also known as the Moplah revolt, which was armed revolt against the British government, and this revolt took place in the place Malabar area of Kerala. Many people were killed in the Mappila revolt, which is seen as the first case of struggle against British in the South India. The third group of people, named as Koli, revolted. That is known as Koli revolt. Kolis lived in the place Maharashtra and Gujarat. They stood against the British for destroying their forest and rising cases of unemployment among them. Learners, besides these revolts, many other tribes also revolted against the British. A tribe, as you know, is a social group of humans. With the coming of the British to India, they occupied those areas which belonged to these people earlier. This led to many revolts against the foreigners in different parts of the country. In the northwest of Maharashtra, Bhils of Khandesh, and in Jharkhand, Kolis of Singhbhum opposed the colonial power. However, both these were tribal revolts which were badly crushed by the British. Another popular tribal revolt was of the Santals. Santals were living in Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. They were also tribals who set up their own government. However, the British government crushed their revolt also. Thus, we see all those people and communities who opposed the British rule were crushed by the British. However, these revolts brought to light the wrong policies of the colonial powers in India. The feelings of Indian people against the British government kept increasing and finally led to the beginning of the revolt of 1857. The British mostly did not care about the feelings of the Indian people, and their only objective was to exploit the resources of this country for their own benefit. Therefore, the reforms and laws that they passed against the social evils were seen as attempts to destroy Indian culture and religion. The people thought that the government wanted them to convert to Christianity. Therefore, they passed new laws. All these causes led to many revolts against the British. We will study about them and the revolts of 1857 in detail in the upcoming lessons. However, in this video, let us learn about the results of the revolt of the year 1857. The most important result of the revolt of the year 1857 was the end of the rule of the East India Company in India. The second result was the British policy towards the Indian people also changed as they stopped interfering in the social and religious customs of the Indians. The third, the feeling of nationalism or love for the country developed among the people of our country. People started respecting those leaders who had fought earlier in the revolt of year 1857. Fourth is, however, not only good results came out of the revolt of 1857, the biggest negative result was a policy of divide and rule that was followed by the British in India after this revolt. Dear learners, do you know about the policy of divide and rule? This policy was adopted by the British government in India after the revolt of year 1857. The meaning of divide and rule was to divide the Hindus and Muslim and rule over India. As both the Hindus and Muslim had taken part in the year 1857 revolt against the British. The foreigners wanted to end their unity as they have come to know that if these two communities will remain united, it will not be possible for them to rule India. Hence, they decided to create difference between Hindu and Muslim so that there could be enmity and British government could get benefit and control over their ruling country. We will now try to understand about the effect of the British rule on India. The rule of British in India led to two different cultural and religious communities living together in India. These were the Indian culture and the British culture. As the British ruled over India for nearly 200 years, and a large number of them stayed in our country during this period. Therefore, both the Indians and British culture influence each other. In the field of dress, food, and language, the Indians adopted many British practices, while the British also learnt a lot from the Indians. Learners, you will be surprised to know that today, if we look around, we will find many things which have British influence. Do you know that the food items like tea, cake, and bread came to India with this British rule? Not only this, even many of the clothes like we wear today, for example, pants, shirts, coats, tie, all these were adopted by us from the British. And also the railways that connects the entire country together was also born during British time period. Not only this, even the Indian Administrative Services, or what we call IAS, these was born during that time period of the British rule. That time it was called as ICS. Its full name is Indian Civil Services in those days. In fact, many of the rules and practices in the Indian Army, Air Force, and Navy have remained just as they were during that time period of foreign rule. However, the most important British influence has been the English language. That has become our own language today. As it is understood by people all over the country. In fact, if today a person wants to get a good job, his knowledge of English language helps him or her in getting that. So now let us summarize what we have learned so far in this video. First, we discussed about the opposition of British and their policies by the Indians. Second, we talked about the revolts against the British rulers in different parts of the country, like the Moplah, Polygar, and Cole revolt. Third, we talked about various tribal movements against the British, like Santhal, Bhil, and Kolis. Fourth, we talked about causes of the revolt of year 1857 and also understood its results. Fifth, we talked about the effects of British rule on India. So, this brings us to the close of this video lecture now. I hope that you understood all the topics well by watching this video. If you have any query, you can send email to us at signlanguage@nios.ac.in. You can also visit our website at www.nios.ac.in. Thank you for watching.
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने, राहों को आलोकित करने, हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
धन साधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो, धन साधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो।
कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े, वे विषय की लोच से युक्त हो। मित्रों हम उठे और जागे,
मंजिल आने की ध्वनि सुने, हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने। कोई मन चाहा केंद्र चुने, स्वयं बने, हम
हिंदुस्तान के हर कोने में नौजवानों के पास प्रतिभा है, उन्हें अवसर चाहिए।
NIOS देता रहा है युवाओं को अवसर आगे बढ़ने का। NIOS से पढ़ने वाले इन युवाओं ने किया है संस्थान को गौरवान्वित। दिव्यांगों ने बन के दिखाया है सबल और आत्मनिर्भर। NIOS के साथ आप भी जुड़िए NIOS के संग।